In 1943, a British spy codenamed Tricycle was captured in occupied France. He had swallowed his cyanide pill, but it failed to work. What happened next would be so brutal that Allied intelligence officers would later refuse to document it in their official reports. The average life expectancy of a captured spy in Nazi-occupied Europe was just 6 weeks. But death was often the merciful outcome. Today we're diving into the dark reality that awaited those who were caught in the deadly game of wartime espionage. 1. The brutal interrogation machine. When a spy fell into enemy hands during World War II, the clock started ticking immediately. The first 24 hours determined whether they'd survive for days or months. The Gestapo, Nazi Germany's secret police, had perfected a methodical system for breaking captured operatives, one that prioritized psychological destruction over physical damage. Forget what you've seen in movies. Hollywood typically portrays Nazi interrogation as primarily physical torture, fingernails being pulled, or prisoners beaten to bloody pulps. While physical violence occurred, the reality was far more sophisticated and terrifying. The Gestapo understood that a broken mind would surrender information far more reliably than a broken body. The process began with complete sensory manipulation. Captured spies were thrust into cells of absolute darkness, disorienting blackness that made it impossible to track time or maintain spatial awareness. This darkness would suddenly be interrupted by blinding lights and deafening noises at random intervals. But that was only the beginning. This disorientation, paired with extreme sleep deprivation, formed the cornerstone of their approach. Guard rotations ensured prisoners were jolted awake whenever they began to drift off. Nazi records documented cases where agents were kept awake for over 100 hours straight, a breaking point where the human mind fractures like glass. Hallucinations became common, rational thought collapsed, and maintaining cover stories became nearly impossible. The Gestapo would then implement temperature-based stress techniques. In the cold cell method, prisoners were stripped naked in unheated rooms during winter. Guards doused them with ice water, bringing them to the edge of hypothermia before allowing minor warming, just enough to prevent death before restarting the cycle. What made this interrogation machine truly terrifying was its psychological precision. The Gestapo staged mock executions, with prisoners hearing firing squads before being led to their own execution, only to receive a last-minute reprieve. They fabricated evidence of captured or killed family members. Some prisoners watched the torture of strangers presented as their colleagues. Their most effective technique was the conveyor belt system. Different interrogators rotated continuously, one brutally violent, the next sympathetic and offering medical care, the next cold and professional. This constant shifting accelerated psychological breakdown. Former SOE agent FFE Yeo Thomas, who survived Gestapo interrogation, later testified, "They don't want to kill you. They want you alive and talking, and they're patient enough to wait until your mind breaks down completely." The Nazi interrogation machine operated with clinical precision, documenting which techniques worked most effectively on different personality types, nationalities, and genders. Interestingly, this brutal system had one significant weakness, one that Allied intelligence would eventually exploit. The Gestapo system worked by systematically dismantling human resistance through predictable stages. Once understood, Allied intelligence began training agents to recognize these stages and implement specific counter techniques at each phase. 2. Women in the shadows. As Allied intelligence agencies developed countermeasures for their agents, a disturbing reality emerged from the shadows of occupied Europe. When Violette Sabo was captured in June 1944, she faced brutal interrogation methods that revealed the Reich's merciless gender ideology at work. Women in captivity endured torture uniquely designed to punish their transgression of Nazi-defined feminine roles. Women comprised nearly 40% of SOE operations in occupied France. They served as couriers, radio operators, and saboteurs with remarkable effectiveness. Their gender provided tactical advantages. They moved more freely in territories where military-aged men drew immediate suspicion. This advantage vanished upon capture. Nazi ideology viewed these women as doubly treacherous. enemies of the state who violated their natural feminine purpose as mothers and homemakers. This transformed standard interrogation into ritualized punishment. For the Gestapo, female agents represented a fundamental challenge to their gender hierarchy, warranting specialized brutality. Noor Inayat Khan's story exemplifies this reality. After capture in 1943, this talented radio operator spent her final months in Pforzheim prison. SS records show she remained continuously shackled, classified as highly dangerous, and to be kept under the most severe conditions. At Dachau, she was forced to kneel before execution, denied the dignity afforded male agents who faced firing squads standing. Ravensbrück concentration camp became the final destination for many female operatives. At this women-only facility 90 kilometers north of Berlin, captured agents became subjects for medical experimentation. Post-war documents revealed SOE agents underwent bone grafting experiments and surgical studies before execution, torments their male counterparts rarely endured. By 1943, Allied intelligence recognized these specific dangers. Female SOE recruits received training focused on gender-specific resistance techniques, including preparation for sexual assault as an interrogation tool. This training proved woefully inadequate against the reality they faced. The courage of these women remains astounding. Of 39 female SOE agents sent to France, 13 never returned. Most endured months of captivity under unconscionable conditions. Survivor Odette Sansom later described, "For the Nazis, a woman spy was something they could not comprehend. They punished us for daring to do it at all." The fate of Madeleine Damermont reveals the distinctive horror reserved for women agents. Captured upon parachuting into France in 1944, she faced public humiliation before death. At Dachau, female agents were paraded through public areas with shaved heads and torn clothing, then forced to kneel for execution before gathered SS officers, spectacles reinforcing the consequences for women who violated Nazi gender norms. These degradation rituals served as warnings to local populations about women stepping outside acceptable roles under occupation. The message was unmistakable. Women in resistance faced not only death but complete dehumanization. 3. The impossible survivors. Death was the expected outcome for any spy in Nazi hands, yet a small handful somehow survived against astronomical odds. The story of Dutch operative Peter Doorlijn stands as perhaps the most remarkable case in espionage history. After being positively identified as a spy in 1944, Doorlijn faced the same inevitable fate as thousands before him. Yet through a combination of extraordinary luck, quick thinking, and sheer audacity, he became one of the few to escape Nazi custody alive, an achievement so rare that Allied intelligence officials initially refused to believe his account. For every Doorlijn, thousands of others weren't so fortunate. The Nazis' near-perfect record of eliminating captured spies was so thorough that by 1943, survival rates dropped below 0.4%, meaning fewer than 4 in 1,000 identified agents lived to tell their stories. This grim statistic makes the tales of those who beat these astronomical odds all the more fascinating. Some survivors employed a strategy that seemed suicidal at first glance. They created elaborate false confessions designed to waste German resources. Agent Henri Dericourt confessed to a fictional sabotage network operating in Stuttgart, providing such convincing details that Nazi counterintelligence diverted dozens of officers to hunt non-existent operatives for weeks. By the time they realized the deception, Dericourt had bought enough time to establish rapport with a sympathetic guard who helped arrange his transfer to a less secure facility. The double-agent gambit represented perhaps the most dangerous survival technique. These captured spies would offer to work for German intelligence while maintaining their Allied loyalty, a high-stakes balancing act requiring flawless memory and exceptional acting skills. Duško Popov, a Yugoslav triple agent codenamed Tricycle, survived by feeding Germans information approved by British intelligence, walking this psychological tightrope for years while secretly serving the Allies. Physical resilience played a crucial role for some survivors. British agent FFE Yeo Thomas, nicknamed the White Rabbit, developed a unique method of enduring torture. Drawing on techniques learned during his pre-war travels in Tibet, Yeo Thomas could enter a self-induced trance state that allowed him to disconnect from physical pain. This remarkable ability helped him withstand interrogation sessions that broke most other prisoners, buying crucial time to develop other survival strategies. Perhaps most surprising were the instances of human connection that saved condemned spies. SS guard Wilhelm Krause secretly helped 4 captured British agents at Sachsenhausen concentration camp, motivated not by bribery, but by his growing disillusionment with Nazi ideology. As he later testified at Nuremberg, "I could no longer reconcile what I witnessed with what I had once believed about Germany's cause." The most effective survival technique, however, was what intelligence historians now call controlled betrayal. Agents would strategically reveal genuine but time-sensitive information that would become worthless before the Germans could effectively act on it. By carefully releasing these golden nuggets of intelligence, captured spies established credibility that later allowed their deceptions to be accepted without question. French resistance operative Marie-Madeleine Fourcade employed this technique masterfully after her 1943 capture. She provided the locations of resistance safe houses she knew had been recently abandoned, building trust that allowed her later fabrications about resistance capabilities to be accepted without scrutiny. This strategic deception not only saved her life, but protected dozens of active resistance cells. The survivors' techniques proved so valuable that they directly shaped post-war intelligence training. Many of the psychological countermeasures taught to CIA and MI6 agents during the Cold War originated from the hard-won lessons of World War II's impossible survivors. The controlled betrayal technique, in particular, became standard procedure for agents operating behind the Iron Curtain, refined into a methodical approach based on captured Nazi interrogation documentation. While thousands of spies vanished into the machinery of war, their stories illuminate the darkest corners of human experience. These operatives, men and women who lived and died in the shadows, deserve recognition beyond sterile statistics and declassified files. Their sacrifice reminds us that intelligence work isn't just about state secrets, but about people who endured unimaginable horrors in service to their nations. The true cost of this shadow war continues to influence modern intelligence practices and ethical debates. If you found this glimpse into wartime espionage compelling, subscribe for our upcoming video on the post-war hunt for escaped Nazi interrogators.